What's up, everybody? Back here with a collection update for you guys. I got a couple of these still to do, and then we're starting my collection videos like I have said countless times before already. So let's get into it. This is all the spoils of some trading I have done with a couple of buddies, specifically Steve from S&T Young and Brian from excuse me, Brian Arkham. So I'm going to start with Steve's first, but before we do that, before anything, I have a live stream that I'm doing with Eli from Dark Hymns from the Cold North this weekend. We're doing it at 2 p.m. Central Time over on his channel. We're going to be ranking the entire Sabotage discography. So y'all should stop by. I'll have Eli's channel linked in the description. It should be a really good discussion. And we are listening to Servants of Steel by Iron Sword in the background. I was originally going to play some Sabotage, but I need a break because I have listened to an absolute load of it lately. This is basically epic heavy metal, Manila Road style. You guys have probably made every inference you can based off of just that cover alone, and it sounds just like what you think it does. Your Serathungal, your Manila Road, stuff like that, especially vocally. It kind of reminds me of Pagan Altar and Serathungal style-wise. Really good. Sorry, I'm a bit sniffly. This beer, Cosmic IPA by Space Camper Cosmic IPA by Boulevard Brewing in Kansas City, Missouri. I wasn't particularly in the mood for any kind of beer today, so I just grabbed this one because it looked like it would be interesting. Didn't feel like pouring it in a glass either, so let's do it. Decent pale ale. I feel like I've tasted that beer 500,000 times. So whatever. We're going to start with Steve's stuff that he sent me, because there's vinyl, and we're going to start off with a heater. Picture disc of Blood, Fire, Death, one of the greatest black metal albums of all time. So, I own a few picture discs, and that is just about it. This is actually the second one that I own. Comes in a sleeve, of which I consider to be satisfactory. Beautiful front cover there. There's nothing I can really tell you new about this music. I mean, come on. You guys have heard this album probably a million times. This is an absolute classic in the genre. Everything to love about metal is wrapped up on Blood, Fire, Death very well. It's aggressive. It's thrashy. It's kind of epic in certain ways. It all depends. It's a natural progression from the first three into the Hammerheart and from there on the Viking era. So thank you so much, Steve. I'm really hyped to have this. Probably going to wind up framing this, but I'll just keep it in the listener shelf for now. So Bathory. Next, Astral Doors. This is a Swedish traditional metal band I had never heard of before. Steve sent this my way. Kind of cardstock, thinner sleeve, nothing particularly crazy on the inside there. Here's the printed inner, sorry. The lyrics on that side, lyrics on that side. The vinyl color is very cool. Translucent or semi-translucent orange. I really appreciate when labels will use the color of the album and use that to officiate what they're going to do on the vinyl pressing itself. So I appreciate that from Metaville or Rough Trade. I don't know who actually did it. I think it's Metaville, which is a label I'm not particularly familiar with. But yeah, so basically this is Dio worship to a T. Maybe a little bit more modernized and angry sounding. But even the vocals are like really trying to be Ronnie James Dio. So if that sounds interesting, check out Astral Doors. Alright, 2 CDs from Steve, and then we're getting into what I got from Brian. So here's a little black metal, To Violate the Oblivion by Zaster. So he sent me a picture of this that he was at his local shop, and he was like, "Do you like this band?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, definitely. Are you getting it?" And then he wound up sending it to me, so I was very excited. So I guess I misunderstood the message, which I'm okay with. Sorry. that I'm kind of a moron, Steve, but I'm very glad to have this. This is actually the first time I've gotten through an entire Xasthur album in a couple of years, actually. And it really hit the spot when I listened to it. It's harsh and it's noisy, and it's everything you expect at a Xasthur. I've had this discussion with one of my buddies recently. This is the kind of a band you can really tell it is made up of one guy. And sometimes that's part of the charm, and a lot of the case it gets kind of lame. I don't have a million one-man projects in my collection, which is funny to say because I'm wearing a Burzum hoodie, but whatever. This is a great record. I'm very, very happy to have this. Xasthur rules. And this, From These Wounds by Funeral. This is the third Funeral album, the Norwegian Funeral, I might say. The one that put out Tragedies in 1995. This is from 11 years later in 2006. They've completely abandoned any of the death metal in their sound, which is, you know, neither here nor there for me. I mean, I prefer the earliest material, obviously, because I like the death metal sound. But this album is really, really cool. I listened to this one with my wife in the car. I was driving her around doing, I don't know, I think she wanted to go clothes shopping or something. And, you know, I just told her I'd drive her around and do whatever, walk around the store with her. And we were listening to this in the car, and she's like, this is weird. I'm surprised you like this. And I was like, I don't know, I do. It's good stuff. It's really moody. The vocals are like double layered a lot of the time. And that's pretty much all there is to it. I mean, it's gothy doom metal. It's kind of like all of the parts from the earlier Funeral material without the death vocals. It's not that much of a different style-wise. But yeah, Funeral's a really good band. So thanks for sending that stuff my way, Steve. I'm very excited to have it. Now, Brian, it is time for me to go through some of this stuff, and there is a little bit more of me being an absolute idiot in here, so I'll talk about that when it comes out. So first thing Brian sent me was Adam Omnor by Canisteris. I'm a huge fan of Canisteris, whatever it is, and it's just an absolute great band that I have nostalgia for, I would say. Yeah, it's very, very cool. So this particular album still kind of holds on to that DSBM kind of atmospheric black metal. It's maybe a little ambient, but not particularly ambient. But it's got a little bit of that attitude to it, and it's got a lot of the shriek vocals, which is something I'm a big fan of. I'm just going to try to get all the Canisteris stuff I can. This one's out of Moribund Records, which I know that they're affiliated with Binder in these days, and they've changed their style from most of the harsh DSBM to more of the beautiful atmospheric black metal. So I'll get a hold of the new stuff eventually. But now that I have the first two, I'm very excited too. Next, a little bit of ambient. This is Rebel Horrors and Usurers by Dark Ages. This is a really, really good ambient project from Ukraine. This is the newest album from 2013, and as you might imagine, it's all about the plague. Dark Ages, you see all these medieval paintings of dead people and things like that. This is a side project of two of the guys from Druk, one of the members being Roman, and then there's another guy in the band that I forgot the name of, but the majority of the effort is made by Roman. Vlad, that's the name of the other guy. I don't know what he's doing in this project, but this is harkens back to the prison era of Burzum, specifically the first of the prison era, where it's, you know, that you're kind of beep boopy kind of keyboards, you know, cheesy cheapskate keyboard sampling, and it sounds really, really good. I kind of like that about it. That's something I find particularly enjoyable in an ambient or dungeon synth project. I would call this more of an ambient project. I really like the lo-fi keyboard sound as opposed to a lot of the grandiose sound in synthesizers that a lot of modern bands will use. I think the lo-fi production adds a lot more to it rather than You know, I'd rather listen to something that sounds like dungeon synth as opposed to something that sounds like a Hollywood level soundtrack. But nonetheless, I really, really like this album a lot. Dark Ages. Next, I have the second album from Cathedral, The Ethereal Mirror. I'm a big fan of the first Cathedral record. Like, quite a bit of a fan of the first Cathedral record. And this one's pretty good, too. It's not nearly as good as Forest Equilibrium by any stretch of the imagination. They got really stonery, and Lee Dorian is really, really, really in full, you know, drunk dude screaming in the front row of a show mode when it comes to his vocals. But, you know, I find it pretty entertaining. There's some really good stonery riffs. Paige, again, was listening to this and said, I'm surprised you like this. She thought it sounded kind of alternative rock. After she said that, I kind of picked up on it a little bit. But at the same time, I was like, you know, whatever, I don't know. This one's fine. I mean, you put on Alice in Chains, it makes me want to throw up. But, like, this, it kind of does have a little bit of that 90s alternative, grungy, stoner sound. But this one, I think, I don't know if it's my bias towards the fact that I'm already predisposed to like Cathedral because I like the first Cathedral, or if I actually just enjoy this on its own merits. Like, if this didn't have the Cathedral tag on it, would I care as much? And that's a real question I don't really have a good answer to. Maybe not as much as I do, but you know, whatever, I couldn't care less. That's all part of the music experience. So Cathedral. This is from '93, by the way. Next is probably my favorite album of the bunch from Brian. This is Remnant Light by Via, I don't know. It's a Nordvis release, co-released by Binder and Recordings. This is a wonderful, first off, check out the sick album cover. This is something that would look really, really good on vinyl. Brian, did you do this? Did you put this white sleeve on there? I would love to know that, because it's a cool idea and I should start doing that too. Because these digipacks scratch the crap out of your discs. But this is a really good Australian project. It's very, very what you'd expect out of a Binder and band. Think of like a generic style of Binder and release, and this is like the mediator of that. This is that median. Imagine your sound from that label, and that's what this will sound like. You know, kind of post-rocky, atmospheric, somewhat produced, but more raw than it is, or somewhat produced, somewhat raw, I should say. Maybe a little more on the raw side. It has that somewhat Cascadian style to it. It's a very, very, very good album. I would definitely recommend this to any fans of, you know, your Panopticons and your Falls of Raros and stuff like that. Next, from the Abyss of Dungeons of Darkness by Thoth. This is a Polish black metal album, kind of a side project of Rob Darkin and one of the guys from Dark Fury, which is a sketchball band. So there's no particularly sketchiness that I know about on this album, so if that gets your knickers in a twist, you'll be okay here. Sorry, I had a phone call interrupt that. So I'm going to keep on going here. Next, I got Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is maybe the 4th or 5th Iced Earth album. I've been wanting to get a hold of more Iced Earth. I want to give them more and more chances. I like the band, but it's not really something that I listen to a ton of, if that makes any good sense. Yes, this is the 6th Iced Earth release, from what I understand, because there's a little promo thing in here. So they were very prolific in their day. They kept it very, very busy, which is, you know, not necessarily a bad thing. But, you know, this album has Metallica-isms all over it. Even my wife picked it out in the car with me. The yeah kind of thing that, what's his face? The main singer, I don't remember, whatever, John Schaefer, what he's doing. He does tons of James Hetfield style vocals, and that's kind of not my favorite thing in the world, because it kind of sounds like butt rock to me at that point. But nonetheless, it's a good record. I'll give it some more listens. Alright, next one here is Veralder Nuskli by Rimfrost. I still have it in the shrink because I listened to it digitally, and I just haven't played the disc quite yet, but I've listened to the album already. This is a Cease and Desist black metal band from Sweden. This is their second album from 2009. And this is great. First thing that really attracted to me when he showed me his list was the album cover when I looked up the name, because I knew I recognized Rimfrost, but I didn't really know anything about them. But yeah, it's really, really good, very Immortal-esque black metal. And when I say Immortal-esque, it's like the mid-era. At the Heart of Winter, Damned in Black, things like that. Kind of thrashy, really, really thrashy, somewhat melodic black metal. And I find it pretty entertaining. I really, really do enjoy this album quite a bit, because At the Heart of Winter is my favorite Immortal album, which is somehow an unpopular opinion, which is mind-boggling to me, because it's a brilliant record. But Rimfrost is a really, really good band. If you guys haven't listened to, check it out. Next, this is Grav. Mental Ivja demo. I don't remember how to pronounce that. I don't really remember where this band is from, but I recognize the name from hearing Canyon Bickle talk about Grav in a video from however long ago at this point. But this is, yeah, like I said, the second demo, and it's very odd. It's very undistorted black metal. The vocals are just your black metal stuff, but like the guitars barely have distortion on them, and it sounds kind of like an influence of that Mutilation, Black Millennium, Grimly Reborn era, or Vampires of Black Imperial Blood, where it's sort of distorted. Yes, it's definitely distorted, but it's like 1960s distortion. It does kind of sound like surf rock, with wretched vocals and some kind of soundscapey ambience to it, some keyboards here and there. It's a very interesting listen. It's definitely something that I'm going to have to give a couple more digestive chances to, because at first it sat weird with me. I was like, this is weird. Why did I want this so much? But the more, the more I think about it, it's an interesting listen, and it's something I'm going to have to revisit once again. Grav. Next, death metal from the United States. This is Morbidity by Obsidian Hooves. First off, what is up with that logo? That is a very odd logo. But, this is a cacophonous death metal album, for sure. I never really noticed what the album cover was. It's like a skull of what looks to be a steer with plastic over it and candles. So that's not nearly as cool as I originally thought it was. Why'd you put plastic on it? I don't know. That's a weird thing to me. But this is out on Rotten Tomb, and it's what you'd expect out of it. It sounds like Incantation to an extent, but it's really, really long. This is well over an hour long, and dude, I don't like listening to some of my favorite bands for an hour. Sometimes it's a bit much, but like, you're gonna play this style and come at me with that long of an album, it kind of wears out its welcome a little bit after the halfway mark, if you ask me. So if you're in a death metal band, don't go much past 40 minutes, because this old boy could not care. This video is not meant to work out because my phone just ran out of storage and I had to go delete some stuff. So next thing is Obscue with Malignant. This is a Swedish black metal band, which this is where my stupidity that I mentioned earlier is returning to me, because I looked at this one, thought I recognized the name, and said, oh crap, absolutely, wow, I'm really surprised he's getting rid of that. I thought this was Obscue from Denmark. This is Obscue from Sweden. But nonetheless, it's a pretty decent black metal album. It's punky, and it's really raw and straightforward. You've definitely heard albums that sound like this before, They don't do too much to differentiate from the pack. But sometimes you don't want that, Sometimes you don't want somebody who's always forward-thinking. Sometimes that gets annoying on its own. People always trying to make an effort to be different. It could be a little tiresome if they do it too often. So, yeah, check this out if you guys really like your raw, straightforward, old-school black metal. And last guy here, Evil Triumphs Again by Bone Hunter. This is the debut Bone Hunter album from 2013, I believe. And if you guys have not heard this band, it is everything you expect to hear from a Hell's Headbangers band. It's kind of thrashy. It's very much so old school. It's got a whole lot of blackened tendencies. It's got some punky tendencies. It's definitely metal punk, if you guys will. Kind of crusty, nasty stuff. So I'm gonna call it at that. So thank you guys so much for the trades. I appreciate you guys both. Thank you guys again for watching, and tune in to me and Eli's discussion on Saturday at 2 p.m. Central Time. I'll catch you all on the next one. Keep it greasy.